Well, the ding of a slot machine is synonymous with the Vegas experience. Well, some companies are profiting off the thrill of winning it all by selling casino gaming as an export. We'll sit down with a panel of industry leaders to discuss the growing business of export gaming. That's today on Nevada Week.
Support for Nevada Week is provided by Senator William H. Hernstat, Cashman Equipment, and additional supporting sponsors.
The bright lights of strip casinos draw millions of people to Southern Nevada every year. However, tourists aren't the only way local gaming companies are making money. For example, casino games were Nevada's second largest export in 2018, bringing over $720 million to our state. Now, this lucrative industry is spreading the Las Vegas experience to countries all over the world, including Macau and Singapore. To discuss gaming exports, we are joined by Walt Eisele, Senior Vice President and Chief Technology Officer of Scientific Games, Sandra Morgan, Chairwoman of the Nevada Gaming Control Board, Bernhard, Executive Director of UNLV's International Gaming Institute, and Howard Stutz, Executive Director of CDC Gaming Reports.
So Howard, I want to start with you. We mentioned gaming as an export, but then we have also some of our international areas like Macau. We've got some of our big corporations here that have opened up huge installations in the hotel and gaming industry as well. When we're talking about exports, can you give us some scope on exactly what we're talking about here?
Well, it's the tech, it's the intellectual capacity that we've come in. You know, the Nevada gaming industry has gone in to a lot of these different markets and brought the experience of operating here in the Silver State and also operating around the U.S.
And Sandra, let's talk about the regulatory side of this. Nevada, I'm assuming, is the gold standard when we're talking about regulation.
Absolutely. It's
not the first thing on the top of your mind when you're thinking of something that is exported, but how are we exporting regulation, both internationally and domestically?
Well, I think I'm very proud to say that we consistently host other jurisdictions, whether they be other jurisdictions in the U.S. or internationally. They will always want to come to Nevada to see how we've done it because we've been able to do it so successfully over so many years. And it's important, I think, for Nevada to be not only the face, but to continue to promote our gold standard because it's very important to ensure that gaming, if well regulated, can thrive. And so we need to make sure that other jurisdictions that are considering legalizing gaming, or whether it be sports wagering, or even other countries that are considering maybe allowing gaming, that we can show the statutory and regulatory structure that we've had in place and how we're able to actually investigate the people that want to be licensed and enforce them as well. Of course, every country or state has their own demographic and things that they may be considering, but we always want to be able to host them. And of course, we have great relationships with Singapore and Macau, New Jersey, all the other states that are considering sports wagering. We have consistent communications with them. It's very important to us, and I think it's also important to them as well.
Yeah, the chairman brought up a good point. We talk about, the casinos that we saw an expansion over the years, but sports betting now. You see Nevada companies partnering, like MGM with GVC out of Europe, and William Hill US, which was headquartered in London, but they set up a huge operation in Nevada. They're moving into all these different states around the country to manage the sport, to take the risk, assume the risk, manage the sports book operations, bring that experience into these markets. So that's where we're seeing that now going forward.
Yeah, and Bo, I mean, we're talking about sports gaming, we're talking about regular gaming as well. From a geographic standpoint, where are the key areas that we see most of our exports going, or is it just kind of worldwide right now?
Yeah, so I'm lucky. I have a great job in that in my role at the International Gaming Institute, we typically hit 6 continents a year, each of which have Nevada inventions in their backyard, and not just at the level of the great tech companies that are here in Nevada, but also these big, tall, shiny buildings, these integrated casino resorts now exist in every continent. And these are places that are very much, these are products, if you will, that were very much invented by Nevada minds, great minds like Kirk Kerkorian, right, like Jay Sarno, and now exist in places like Singapore and places like South Africa and Seoul and all points in the geopolitical in between.
And to that point, International Gaming Institute is world renowned for its research, but also its intellectual capital. I mean, how is academia locally then being an export as well?
So yeah, we're very fortunate. We're by far the world's largest academic institute that studies the global gaming industry. We're 38 team members strong now. We have centers of excellence in areas like gaming regulation, in areas like innovation, in areas like hospitality, where again, we export the finest in hospitality innovation as well. And the fun part for us is seeing the way in which our status as a global intellectual capital really transforms Nevada. It transforms Nevada into a more recession-resistant environment because it allows us to be more nimble. Nevada companies have the capacity, given that they operate all over the world, to be far more stable than they were maybe prior to the last Great Recession, because they have that global footprint in a way that makes them more nimble but also more stable.
We've been called the Silicon Valley. Las Vegas is the Silicon Valley of the gaming industry. Scientific Games is one of the world leaders also in gaming. Do you see Las Vegas as being that Silicon Valley?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's so much innovation that comes out of Nevada in general, and I would also mention that even Northern Nevada too. We have tech centers there as well, so innovation's coming from all over our state, and it's exciting to see. But if you look outside where we are exporting a great deal of our technology and our innovation, we also have to be a little bit more nimble from a global perspective, because the global markets are a bit different. You know, Las Vegas is an amazing place. People that have been to Macau will say it's an amazing place, but it's quite a bit different too. Yeah. You know, there's a big focus on probably more live games in Macau than there is on slot machines, and slot machines are really the staple of Nevada gaming, right, as we've grown up with it. But so our job, and my job as the person that drives technology and products, is to make sure we have, as we export more and more, is to make sure we have global awareness of what that market looks like, and what we do to make sure our innovations are relevant and are keeping pace, because frankly, some markets move very quickly and some markets move very slowly.
So companies like Scientific Games, like IGT, Aristocrat, Nevada is really, our slot industry is really like the auto industry has been for Michigan.
Right.
It's very, that's very important in this industry. I mean, when you realize how many people companies like Scientific Games employ, and the innovations being driven out of this state, and it really has been it's an offshoot. And when you think about the casinos, you got this whole other industry that really services, worldwide. That's what's very important.
I'm always trying to convince my students of that, right? My students are distracted by the big, tall, shiny buildings because we build them to be distracting, right? That's kind of the point. But sort of more quietly, back behind the airport and along the 215 freeway, there are these more low-flung campuses that look much more like a Google campus or an Apple campus. And whereas an MGM might be in, 6 jurisdictions worldwide, you're in over 300 jurisdictions worldwide. So for university students looking for an opportunity to participate in what is increasingly a massive tech-driven global economy, in many ways, it's almost a better fit for people like that.
Yeah. It is, and it's worth mentioning too, one of our challenges we have as the gaming industry expands here is recruiting talent. It's a great point that Bo makes, because we rely on top talent, engineer, content, mathematicians. There's a lot of different aspects that make great gaming products, and we need more, right?
Yeah, it's our STEM.
Grow, and it really is. Yeah. It really is.
And needing a range of skills as well.
Absolutely,
right?
Absolutely.
So Bo, let's talk more just about the economic development side of this and try to put this maybe in some tangible terms for our state.
Right.
How is the export market really benefiting our state?
Yeah, so there are those who might look at a place like Macau that's generating, 6 times now, 7 times the revenue of the Las Vegas Strip, and really sort of see it as a lamentable sort of outcome. When there are jobs in Nevada that exist now that didn't exist before Macau, that exist solely to work with that global that international jurisdiction. So each time we've expanded, and this doesn't happen forever necessarily, but when Atlantic City came on, people said, oh gosh, nobody's going to go to Las Vegas because now they can go to the East Coast. When tribal gaming happened, right, everybody said, well, they can go in their backyard. They're not going to go to Las Vegas. When Macau happened and we saw the numbers we saw there, everybody said, oh, geez, is that a threat? When actually the opposite has been true. More people in each of those places have been exposed to the Nevada invention that is the integrated resort, said, hey, I actually kind of enjoy these rides at the amusement park. I hear there's a place called Las Vegas that has a whole bunch of roller coasters, and I want to go there. So at each opportunity, at each threat, or at least something that was perceived as a threat, it's become an opportunity for the state of Nevada.
One of the points Bo made about expansion, years ago when California launched Indian gaming, I went down to San Diego for a story because it was a huge market. You had a lot of people that started out in low-level positions on the Strip and casinos, moved into management positions into these Indian properties because they wanted the experienced people. Now, you see people coming in, getting experience in all these other markets, and they're coming back to Vegas, or so it's really bred this huge
global ecosystem.
Exactly, and it's been it's amazing to see that.
And Howard, with that, I mean, we're talking about major saturation, though, right? Where we don't. It's not just Macau now. We're talking about Japan. We're talking about other international centers, and then we're talking about statewide here. Every single state seems to be developing some form of casino. I mean, is there a point in time where there is a tipping point and we're not seeing the revenue that?
Well, the market that's been the tipping point could be is the Northeast. I mean, there is you look at Maryland, Pennsylvania expansion of gaming practically killed Atlantic City because Atlantic City didn't keep up like Las Vegas, adding the non-gaming attractions that we see all around. And Atlantic City was getting crushed because people just stayed in Philadelphia or stayed, didn't make the drive or over 75 miles. Northeast is that's something that the industry has to look at. Maryland, now Massachusetts, Connecticut. I'm missing some Rhode Island. I'm missing some states here.
New York's making noise.
Yeah, but to that, I think there's something about the entire Las Vegas, Southern Nevada experience that each of these jurisdictions, honestly, they just simply don't have. And with the threats that Bo mentioned with riverboats as well, that was they're just going to stay in the Midwest. It's there. Or they're going to stay in the Gulf. And I think Vegas and Nevada has been able to, with our regulatory structure, even though it's been in place for so long, still at least be able to move and modernize with the needs of the industry to ensure that we're going to still thrive. Yeah. I think everyone mentions the threats, even with sports wagering now. Are you concerned about it? Our numbers are continuing to grow. It doesn't mean that because another jurisdictions grows that ours are diminished. The only 2 times that I think our revenues have dropped has been 2001 and of course 2009. Yeah. But other than that, with all of those threats throughout the years, our revenues continue to grow.
It's a great point because people come to Vegas, you're going to go to, the industry doesn't want to know this, but they go to like 5 different properties. You come here and you move all around. You go to an Indian market or a riverboat market, there's one property and that's it, and you're stuck there. So that's really what, you come here for the whole experience. That's why, as Sandra said, the Super Bowl weekend, March Madness, we still had great numbers in this state, despite sports betting launching all over. There's 13 states now with sports betting. Despite it launching all over, we still had great numbers. Yep. So.
And Sandra, let's go back to Nevada and the regulatory piece of this, right? Is our regulations are based in for our own state, right? Sure. But what are we doing to make sure that our regulations necessarily aren't affecting what international exports or domestic exports might be that are being developed here? And I'm speaking more specifically to just the innovation factor here.
Well, since I became chair in January, I've made it a point to not only talk to manufacturers and people developing the games, and of course going to mobile gaming. Even though right now it's still a very small point of our revenue, that is something that's growing at least 200 to 300% over the last 5 years. And so I made it a point not only to work with the other board members, but of course our technology division to see what we can do to, of course, ensure that there is we're decreasing as much risk as possible. We clearly have a state public policy that says there needs to be strict regulatory guidelines to ensure that there's no nefarious characters in gaming and not a lot of risk to the patrons that are playing. But I want to make sure we give at least the industry enough wiggle room or breadth to be able to try new innovative ideas with still decreasing risk, not only for the customer, but for the industry as a whole as well.
And Walt, let's talk just about the product development piece of this too. We were talking about competition here. From international markets, are we seeing a lot of competition related to the development of the actual gaming products?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we have kind of the nucleus of gaming expertise here in this state just because of the history, but there's a lot of other companies worldwide that produce content. I mean, you mentioned Aristocrat, they're actually an Australian company, right? They do wonderful content, but there's companies in Europe that probably most people haven't heard of. A company called Novomatic probably has a larger footprint of gaming machines than IGT or Scientific Games combined. They're huge. So yeah, and again, it's important as we look at this export and expansion of gaming outside of even the U.S. in general, is to understand what those other providers are doing, make sure we're in line with that. And it's back to the innovation, because some of these players probably wouldn't be licensed in our state, right? Mm-hmm. That's the reality. So we appreciate, Sandra, your position on that you're going to give us a little bit of wiggle room, but we still have to maintain, our, play by the rules, as it were. We also, it's interesting to mention too, just on that topic, as we look at the export of gaming, there's also the export of regulation. And I think I've seen it on many occasions where they actually look back to Nevada and they say, how is it done there? And they really want to learn from us because we do things, we've been doing it for a long time, especially in some of these emerging markets where you have not seen legalized gaming before, and in some cases, some of the products that might be there today that would be considered innovative may not even be completely legal, right? And so, the gray market thing has to be addressed. All these things kind of roll together as we look at product innovation as we push out into these new markets and new opportunities for the industry at large.
Now, we've talked a lot about the Vegas experience so far, but a growing sector of our local economy is esports gaming. Now, this multi-billion-dollar industry has set up shop at the Luxor Hotel and Casino. We caught up with the team at the HyperX Esports Arena to discuss the future of esports gaming as an export. Take a look.
Las Vegas is an up-and-coming hub of esports. It's the global destination for everyone in the entire world. And it just only made sense to come to the place that never sleeps to bring out esports. With Allied Esports, our goal is to really just create the perfect experience. Vegas definitely can compete with Seoul, South Korea, and also LA. Staples Center is great, and I'd love to go to South Korea, but Vegas is where it's at. I definitely think Las Vegas will become, the gaming version of Silicon Valley. I can't tell you exactly how much money there is in it, but you have major partners like Coke coming in, then you have car dealerships who are gonna jump into it. So honestly, I would say you're gonna make more money in esports in the next couple of years. The future of esports, just thinking about it gives me goosebumps, but honestly, it's gonna transcend everything. The future of esports is gonna change every single person's perception. Before you know it, you're gonna have gamers from all over the world playing in major tournaments, and it's gonna be a regular thing. I would ask the board, what are they foreseeing esports in their own futures? And then on top of that, how are they embracing esports? Would they look at it from the betting side?
So, Bo, the question, how are we then embracing something like esports here? And then really, what is the future maybe for domestic or even international export?
Yeah, esports is the latest in a series of changes that Las Vegas has incorporated into, again, its broader product. At UNLV, we have the first esports lab. We have entire courses dedicating to studying the way in which these intersect with our global gaming industry. And I think it's fascinating because more broadly, obviously the trend is all of us are gamers, right? We don't think of ourselves as gamers playing World of Warcraft, but we're playing on our phones. And the space that is the casino being completely distinct from the space that is the rest of the resort, those lines are probably going to be blurring over the next generation or so, right? And the notion of how you game, how you're entertained, how you're competing with others, and then in turn how you bet on those sorts of competitions is a puzzle that Las Vegas is obviously trying to solve, both at the regulatory level and at the tech level.
Yeah. I mean, we're talking about digital gaming here that's a lot wider than just esports, and we're talking about skill-based games and things like that. I mean, how do you see just that whole sector expanding over maybe the next 25 years?
Well, clearly as an industry, we need to address kind of the next generation of people that'll be playing games for entertainment. And maybe gambling, maybe not. Esports is a great example. It's not a gambling game. It's a game that, our kids play, right? But, if you just look at the popularity of esports, we clearly have to be cognizant of it as an industry, and we need to understand where it fits. And, can our technology take wagers on it? The answer is yes. I mean, it's another event is the way we look at it at the most basic level with our sports betting technology. Is it something you want to do? That's a different question, right? When it comes to engagement in general, though, the digital channel is clearly one, and Sandra, you said it. It's growing. It's small today, but it's absolutely growing, and we need to be aware that younger people want to engage differently than the tradition of sitting down in front of a slot machine at a strip casino. They want the engagement to go outside the casino walls. They want the engagement to follow them. They want to be probably recognized in different ways than we have typically done it. Even when we start talking about innovations around, recognizing people with computer vision technology, right? There's more and more acceptance of it. I'm not a big fan of it, but the 20-somethings, it's what they grew up with. It's what they're used to, and that's what they expect. And they expect it to understand them better and to give them ultimately a better play experience, because it comes down to engagement, because that's the business we're in. We're in the entertainment industry, right? We want to engage people. We want them to have fun in a responsible fashion, of course, but we want them to be engaged, and we need to think about that. And to me, the digital channel is clearly where we need to focus as an industry across suppliers like Scientific Games, across the regulators, and across industry experts that guide us down this path.
And Bo, Walt mentions engagement, right? When we're talking about digital and we're talking about mobile types of gambling here, this is no longer something where you go into a casino, you play a couple slots and you leave. This could be a continuous engagement thing. Are we seeing that trend internationally as well?
Internationally as well. Korea is sort of the global intellectual capital of esports in good and bad ways. But those lines are blurring all over the place. I was invited last year by the NHL at a series of Golden Knights games to view a new technology where they were embedding the microchips in the players. You then put on a virtual reality headset and you got to choose your player. And I chose Fleury, Marc-Andre Fleury is the goalie, pushed him on my virtual reality screen, and then I became him live as the game was going on, not in the sense of playing a video game. As the game was going on, I was seeing the players fly by, I was seeing the shots come in, and there's no way, again, as crazy as that sounds, there's no way that the future isn't bending in that direction, right? And Nevada will only be stronger by recognizing, as we always have, right, that the world's changing. This is a place where if you Google top 10 implosions in Las Vegas history, you'll get 10 of them, but you could have chosen 10 other ones, right? And that's reflective and symbolic of, I think, a broader commitment to change, right? There are plenty of traditionalists back east who say, gosh, you guys blow up your buildings every 10 minutes. But I think it's reflective of a broader mindset that's unafraid to say, oh, the world's changing, we need to change along with it.
A rebranding, yeah, if you will. And if I wanted to comment just from a regulatory perspective on esports and skill-based, which I do consider to be different. I know that there's clearly the esports arena on the Strip. There's also an esports kind of movement downtown as well, and they have an esports alliance. And we have a regulation 22, that would allow betting on other events that would include esports and things like the MVP of maybe the All-Star game and things like that, where it's not a traditional game, but they have to meet certain parameters and conditions. And we've only had 5 requests, maybe less than 5, to actually bet on esports games. So yes, it's a great entertainment value. It's bringing people in. People may be filling the arenas. But from a regulatory perspective for gaming, there hasn't been a huge I should say desire on the request of books to be able to accept wagers on esports. So we have the mechanism in place to allow it. We just haven't seen quite a spike yet. With regard to skill-based gaming, it's something that I've publicly talked about. I know that some manufacturers think that it's going to be a way to increase engagement for a different demographic that's coming in. What I think the struggle is not necessarily from a regulatory perspective, because I think we have the regulations in place to allow it again, but making the operators comfortable with, actually giving up very valuable casino floor space to these games that really haven't yet proven to generate a lot of maybe interest or revenue as well.
I'm wondering, the change we're talking about with regulation then too, when we are talking about skill-based games, regulation isn't something we think can change really fluidly or quickly, but it seems like it is. I mean, in Nevada, are we seeing drastic changes in how regulation is happening towards something like skill-based games?
Well, actually, I can't take credit for this, because this happened a couple of years ago through the Gaming Policy Committee and through my predecessor, and I think maybe even former Chair Bernhard actually put parameters in place to allow the wagering on esports events and for skill-based gaming. So I definitely would say my hat's off not only to the policymakers, but also to former regulators to actually give us the framework in place to allow to be able to accept wagers on esports and on skill-based gaming, and to allow at least skill-based gaming to grow and to be regulated.
Gotcha. Howard, let's talk about the barriers here, right? We talked about a couple before our segment here. What do you see as kind of the most emerging barriers to us really growing what we're doing in the export?
Regulations are different in every state and every jurisdiction. There's at tax rates, for example. Having dealt with this as a journalist, because people don't understand why Illinois might have a 35% tax rate on their casinos and Nevada only has a 6 3/4% rate. Well, it's because it's a limited number of licenses in a lot of these states, and people don't understand that.
Well, thank you. We're out of time, but great conversation. Really appreciate it. And thank you, as always, for joining us this week on Nevada Week. Well, if you at home would like to learn more about any of the topics we've covered today, check out our website, vegaspbs.org/Nevada-week. Now, before we go, we've talked a lot today about exporting the Las Vegas experience. As the numbers of gaming outlets rise, so does the number of people facing a gambling problem. We spoke with the Nevada Council on Problem Gambling to learn what to do when the fun stops. Take a look.
When visitors come to the Strip, they are drawn in by the possibility to win it all.
Gambling should be a fun, entertaining activity that people can do within set limits. For some people, that is not the case.
Spend too much time on the casino floor, and the ding of a slot machine can become an addiction on par with alcohol or drugs.
We basically address problem gambling as a community health issue.
The council teams with casinos to battle problem gaming from the inside.
Ultimately, for the gaming industry, they understand that having a problem gambler in the casino, that is not their best customer.
According to Executive Director Carol O'Hare, Nevada is the world leader at tackling problem gaming.
Nevada has set that bar, and I think they take it very seriously. What has been done in Nevada is actually influencing those countries to look at this product in a more responsible way.
Although they have a hand in international efforts, the council's #1 concern is Nevadans. If you or a loved one are facing a gambling addiction, the Nevada Council on Problem Gambling is a solution. They match people with resources they need to stop the cycle.
The warning signs of a gambling problem are really pretty simple. If you're supposed to be picking your child up from school, but you're still at the casino, that's a real indication that this is no longer a social activity.
The nonprofit offers a 24-hour hotline to give resources to anyone in need. They also have a full list of resources available online. We have all the information available on our website, vegaspbs.org/Nevada-week. And follow us on social media @Nevada Week.